The Pacific Salmon Foundation was created in 1987 to protect, conserve, and help rebuild West Coast wild Pacific salmon populations. It's a nonprofit volunteer group of conservationists and fish lovers. Reg Tupper is an actor who moonlights as the business development officer of the Pacific Salmon Foundation. Bill Munsie is a Vancouver wildlife conservation artist, and it is my pleasure to welcome Reg Tupper and Bill Munsie to Studio 4 to tell us more.
Well, you fit my busy acting schedule. I can just fit in working for the Pacific Salmon Foundation. It's the other way around, actually.
Is it?
Yes.
So not so many Shakespeare jobs these days,
Not
or
so
what
many
happened?
Shakespeare
Career
jobs,
dried up?
Something like that, yeah.
Well,
No,
then.
I think I reverted to television, and of course the business goes up and down all the time.
Of course.
But I was asked by a good friend of mine who was the Vice President of Communications to come on board and to develop business contacts and develop ideas to raise money for the foundation, and I'm enjoying it tremendously, and it's taking up a huge amount of my time.
I'm sure it is. And how did you meet this guy?
Well, Bill was legendary in the group because he has won the stamp competition, we'll get into that in a second, 5 times, and his images have appeared on the fishing licenses, the stamps that you get when you buy a fishing license. You buy an extra $6, you get a stamp, and you put it on your license, and $1 from that goes back to the Pacific Salmon Foundation. Well, of course, you have to have people to paint these images, so they have a competition, and Bill has won 5 times, and I was thrilled to meet him, and he's quite the character.
Well, you don't want an artist who's not a character,
No.
do you, Bill?
I don't know. I'm not one of those.
How did you...
I'm flattered.
That's all good. But how did you get into painting, and why?
It was partly due to polio, which I had as a child, and I was a social worker, and I had to make the swing from doing something that was physically active to something that wasn't. So I taught myself how to paint.
And did you fish as a kid?
Oh yeah, like most kids, absolutely. And one thing led to another, and thankfully they had a stamp competition, and one of the early directors saw my work at a mall, and it was other wildlife, and he says, "Got just the thing for you, kid. Come on and show some of your artwork at this fish competition." So there I was. Of course, as a young, struggling artist, my inside I just went like ding, 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 ding. Yes, 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 and that was it. That was the start.
So when you paint a chum or a sockeye or a trout, how do you do that? Do you take a picture of a chum or a sockeye or a trout and put it on the wall and paint from there, or do you sit beside a stream and hope one jumps up and you catch the odd spot?
Yeah, you're getting
or
there.
what?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I go out and either if I don't catch one, which I usually don't, I go to Granville Island, which is a local shopping area.
Right.
And I look for a nice, healthy-looking specimen, and I bring it home and I set it up. I do a still life, and then I'll take some photographs, and then I'll freeze it and come back to it, and I start with that.
How interesting, the
He's
process.
a mortician as well as an artist.
Yeah.
A mortician and an artist, but you also paint vases.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And,
anything
fruit.
that's needed. Yeah.
Yes,
got-
not
he's got-
just
I'm a
animals.
generalist.
He's got
You're
quite a
a
wide
generalist.
variety of work. You go into his apartment.
I know,
it's
we're looking at a
amazing.
piece now, and
Just
another
amazing.
piece. It's amazing. Do you oil, acrylic,
Actually,
watercolor?
just about anything. I'm like, you name it and I'll do it.
You just like doing it.
Yeah, but for my later years when I was painting, I used acrylic as my foundation to quickly get on some paint. It dries quickly, it gives you the color base, and then I do oil over top because it's very forgiving. Oil paint is wonderful for people to make a lot of mistakes.
Really?
Yeah.
That's good to know,
You
isn't
can-
it, Reg?
Yeah, it certainly is. When I get started, I'll start with oils.
Can you paint?
Not
Not
I
a
can't-
lick.
not a lick, exactly.
No, I'm the same. I could do paint by numbers. They weren't even very good.
Did you go over
no.
the lines all the time? Yeah.
That's
No,
a start.
Well, it's a start, but when I see something like this, I can't imagine.
I think it's remarkable. I agree with you, Fanny.
because it's coming to life,
Oh, it comes-
right?
it
It's
comes-
come to
oh,
life.
Thanks. Yeah.
It's ultra realistic, and for some people, particularly people who have fished, anglers in the salmon community love these kinds of pictures because they look. It reminds them of what a dynamic force the salmon is under the water. These things that they're trying all the time to hook onto.
Long live the king.
Long live the
Yeah,
king!
speaking
Exactly.
of the last show, yeah, long
Yes,
live the king.
long live the king.
And
And remember when Holly Arntzen wrote the great song, When the Coho
Yes.
Flashed Silver,
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right.
all over the bay?
Yeah.
How beautiful that
I
was.
thought I was prepped. You've really got it down.
Yeah,
Well, Not really, but I was raised in Montana on a
Of course,
stream, don't
yeah.
you
The
know?
river
Yeah,
runs,
so you'll
runs
Where
through
all
it.
the fishers want to go
Yeah.
on the Stillwater and the Madison.
Of course.
Of course, so I have caught the odd trout.
Well, that's a good fish to catch.
Never
and
a
to eat.
steelhead.
You know, Bill has won 5 times. 5 times his images have appeared on our stamps. I think he's lead among all of the people and we've had the competition since 1989, and it's 5 times for you, isn't it, Bill?
Yeah.
How great. So now explain, you can't put this stamp on an envelope and send
No,
it anywhere.
no. As I say, it's produced by and for the for the federal government to tax, well, I guess I wouldn't want to call it a tax, an extra donation to salmon conservation, so that every salmon fisherman who buys a saltwater fishing license must pay an extra $6 plus HST.
Right.
And they will get a stamp of a salmon painted by somebody like Bill, who's gone through the competition.
Okay.
It will go stuck on the license, and it will,
There it
that's
is there.
There's one right there. And that's Mark Hobson. He's another very well-known
Okay,
wildlife
and that's
artist.
his lingcod catch record. What does
Well,
that have to
oh,
do
well,
with it?
That's all of the data on a fishing license relates to anything you can catch in the salt water. So
Okay,
that's
so
for our
it
purposes,
doesn't-
that's immaterial.
It's immaterial,
I'm
good.
just- that
Not
will show you.
good, but
That's
okay.
right, okay. So that's how they appear, and anybody who's angled even once, never mind the many repeat people, the sport fishermen all over British Columbia,
Right.
is very familiar with these things.
What does it cost to get a license these days, do you know? Six?
Oh, for the
For the stamp is $6.
does.
I think it's $50 still.
$50, and you can't go fishing without a
no,
license
you
or the
can't.
warden will put you in the jail.
No,
Or give you a tidy fine.
I can't give you the exact number, unfortunately. I should be able to, but there's a bigger charge for people who come in from outside of the province. So the provincial
Right.
people spend less.
Okay, so, but trout's
That's a
included in
different-
this,
no,
right?
that's a
Isn't it
different
or
matter.
not?
No,
So
freshwater fishing is a different matter. There'll be a different stamp for halibut fishing. So there's quite a few. There's a few
Okay,
segments.
so the cutthroat or the char
No.
or the steelhead, not
No,
with
we're specifically
Pacific
concerned
salmon.
with the Pacific salmon. Yeah.
Okay, how good is it or how bad is it for Pacific salmon, wild Pacific salmon?
Well,
The
it de-
Fraser River,
It depends
all of
on
the
who
above.
you talk to. I'm not a fish biologist, so I can't give you all the data, but
Mm-hmm.
we had such a huge bumper crop of sockeye last year, and the year before, of course, it was very low. Any top fish biologist, including the president of our society, of our foundation, Brian Riddle, will tell you that it's very difficult to make precise calculations on how fish are doing. There's what's called the black box out in the center of the Pacific Ocean, where they disappear for 2 or 3 or 4 years at a time. And when they come back or don't come back, who knows what's causing it? If there's an El Nino, for example, and the temperature of the water raises even a few degrees, salmon are very temperature sensitive. And that will rebuff them, that will drop their numbers. So there's so many different factors, it's impossible
Yes,
for me
and
to say.
I will have on a fish biologist, and tomorrow I'm having an eagle specialist on, and
good.
as you know that some of the eagles are dropping
right.
from the sky or from the branches in British Columbia because the chum run was down,
Well,
and it's all connected.
We call salmon a keystone species. It's a lifeblood species. In other words, so many of these, you mentioned the eagles, but so many, the bears,
The
so
wolves,
many,
swimming wolves,
dozens and dozens of species rely on this linchpin animal, the salmon.
well, the main thing is to keep the Fraser the greatest salmon watershed in the world.
Yeah.
That too.
Exactly.
Small task, but doable, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Well, the Salmon Foundation has been in operation since 1987. And from that, over the last 25 years, we have given over millions and millions of dollars to streamkeeper groups who have projects to go out and rebuild the habitat, rebuild the runs. And they're all volunteers, and they've come forward with projects which are judged on their merits by community judges who can look at
Right.
these things. And
Are these
give
artists
them-
or are they
No,
wildlife
no,
people?
No,
or?
no, they're just folk. They're mostly
Just
retired.
folk.
They're streamkeeper groups,
Like
like
us.
in West Vancouver or Fanny Bay,
Of course, where their oysters
where the
are
oysters
really
are.
good.
or up in the Burnaby Mountain. I mean, there's streamkeepers groups all over this province, hundreds, thousands of them,
Right.
and we give them, allocate monies to them to get them started on their rehabilitation projects. And we'll give them $1 and they will give us back $7 worth of work because the multiplier effect through the volunteers.
Sure.
So a major donor gives us $5,000. That's $35,000 in projects.
Sure. And it's all volunteer, the foundation,
All-
right?
well,
Were you
not- I'm-
endowed? How did it begin?
Well, it began with a group of sportsmen in Vancouver who really were concerned about the diminishing salmon runs.
Okay.
And they began to seed money into the project, and over that time the federal government has become involved. We get a lot of our money from major donors, from individuals who will donate, so we're constantly fundraising. We use vehicles such as Bill's paintings, which we display in easels like Ducks Unlimited do. We
Yes.
have them out in public where people can bid on them, and we make money that way. So that we're always out there looking for sponsors and donors.
Okay, do you get political? Or
No.
you take a statement on salmon
No,
farming
we're
or
not
anything
in
like
that-
that?
we're not
You're
an advocacy
not
group,
that
no.
group. Okay, so were you ever a stamp collector?
Yes, as a matter of
You
fact,
were?
I was. Oh yeah, as a kid,
Really?
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
how, it's funny, it's like kismet or something, isn't it? So
Yeah, it
now
is.
you have your own stamp, so to
Yes,
speak.
yeah, sort of,
You've
yeah.
got 5 or 6?
5.
5. Do we have one here, Reg?
I don't know if we've got one of Bill's. What I've got here, and I'll just take a minute to angle it properly so we can see it properly. I'm watching the monitor to make sure it's not glare. This is the original. This is the first one by a fellow called Field. And this was the first, you see at the bottom there where my finger is here, these are the stamps themselves. And they've been autographed by the artist, and they're cut into the mat. And then, of course, the reproduction, the lithograph is put in the frame.
Right.
And we sell these to people as well as the stamps themselves. People will collect these stamps. They'll come into the office and say, you got 1989? Because I'm not in my collection.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So can you buy a lithograph of your work?
Oh, yeah.
The Pacific
You
Salmon
can.
Foundation, yes. They can
Through
go
the Salmon
through-
Foundation,
Well,
so you don't have to spring for the oil.
Yeah,
No.
unless they want to go over top of it.
Of course, but it'd be nice if they did.
Yeah, yeah.
When you title something, you have a piece called Long Live the King, one called Searching the Shallows. Do you title it before you create it,
No.
or do you live with it and then give it a title?
That's what I do. In fact, the painting lives with me, and it eventually says, look, this is what you're stuck with. This is what
Right.
you're going to color. One day you look at something and you go, that's what I'm going to call it.
And where do you work? Do you work in a studio? Do you work?
In my place, I have a studio that my wife closes the door because it looks like a workshop. Nobody goes in
Of course, every man needs a den. You know
Yeah,
that.
we do. I know.
He's
That
got a
doesn't
man-
make den. This
he's
is
got a
my
man
den.
cave
You
like
can
few
call
others.
it a studio if you
Yeah,
want.
yeah, right. Yeah,
He's
you're
got a man
amazing.
cave like few others, I can tell you. It's an extraordinary place.
Every man I know has a man cave, and anybody who lives with that man should not go in it.
That's right. It's
Don't
dangerous
even
territory.
just close
Yeah,
the
yeah,
door.
yeah.
And I think the men are happier when we just close the door
I
too.
think they're very happy.
Don't you?
Oh, yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now,
And
I
women
should,
need a room of their own too.
now, I should just mention, because you asked about buying the lithographs, we
Yes.
have an event coming up tomorrow.
I know that. That is why you're
Did
here.
I jump?
No, you haven't
good.
jumped.
Good.
It says, Sue's holding up a sign that says event. Guest change,
How
event.
would I know from the back of my head?
I don't know because you're an actor.
Because I'm an actor.
And you know things like that,
Yeah.
and you speak to time and work to time.
Exactly.
Okay, so tell me about the Salmon Art Show coming up and the charitable auction.
At the Sandbar Fish Restaurant tomorrow, Wednesday the 2nd, between 5:30 and approximately 8 o'clock,
Right?
we will be displaying 5 paintings such as Bill's. 2 of them are Bill's, 2 of them are Mark Hobson's, and 2 of them are a third artist, Curtis Atwater. We have made lithographs of these paintings, and Bill and the other artists have signed them. They'll be there in the restaurant on easels, available for people to bid on them, and the top 3 or 4 bids will take them home.
How great. And
Yeah.
will there be food and wine? Because Sandbar
There
has
will be
good
lots
food.
of food and wine. And I'll tell
Lots
you,
of sushi.
Well, I'll tell you,
Maybe.
the
Oh,
Sandbar.
for the, I don't know, is that politically incorrect for the
No,
Pacific Salmon
no, not at all.
Foundation?
Well, it may be, but I love it. So
Can you catch and release, or how does that work? Maybe you'll be having tofu.
maybe, but not. No, in fact, we're not having any tofu.
Okay.
What we're having is the Sandbar restaurant has put together a wonderful menu of at least 20 items, all salmon-based, ocean-wise salmon.
Great.
In other words, environmentally friendly
Yes.
cod. And they will be serving them. The price of admission is $30, and you get a drink for that, plus these wonderful salmon canopies, and an opportunity to purchase one of these things that I just held up, or bid on one of Bill's or the other gentleman's paintings, who are now framed and lithographed,
great.
and signed and ready to go. So there'll be quite a, for people who like this kind of thing, and particularly for anglers, it should be a tremendous opportunity to buy.
Very much so. And as you know, there are some very fine female anglers too.
I've heard that, yeah.
So there'll be girls and boys
And
at
artists.
the and artists. Yes, so there'll be girls and boys at the soiree. Okay,
Pleasure.
nice to meet you. Thanks for your beautiful work.
Thank you.
And nice to see you again.
Well, nice to see you always.
Reg Tupper and Bill Munsie.